Hey guys, welcome back to the garage. Today we're back working on the F100. We're going to take a little bit of a break from the body repair. I just need a mental break. That's just a lot of tedious, mind-numbing repair there for it. I like more of the projects that are the square peg and round hole, the stuff that keeps me up at night thinking about this. So we're going to get back to that probably in a week or so because we got to get the cab mounted in order to do a lot of other things moving forward. But today we're going to go and get started on trying to get some things tackled with the wiper assembly. This is what we have for the truck, and I want to try and use the motor out of the Grand Marquis. I'm hoping that this is pretty straightforward of just figuring out a way to mount it, put a new arm on there, and hopefully everything falls into place there. So without any more talking, let's get started. Got the motor off, left that plate on there because I think that may be useful. My wiper assembly, this is what I got when I got the truck. It was missing the factory 6-volt motor, so I don't really know a whole lot of what went on there before I got it. Everything that attaches the actual wiper arms and everything is real worn out. I went ahead and bought all new pieces for that I am going to change out. And the other thing that I did buy was the new arm that attaches directly to the motor. Nice thing I see already is that does fit over there. The only thing is that sits up real high, so we'll have to push this motor way down in comparison. The other thing is this piece right there has a tapered end like this, and then it's got little gear teeth on there. That press is on there, so that keeps it from slipping. So at some point we're probably going to cut this off, use that as kind of like a nut, and we'll probably weld it to the bottom of this so that this one mounts good and tight to our new motor. Next thing that I'm seeing here is, like I said, being that I don't know exactly how the motor on the truck went because I didn't have it, I'm assuming that the center of that motor should be, when I have this lined up like this, to where those are both even and equal distance to where it's just a straight line from here to there. So that's the first thing I want to do, is figure out where the center of the motor shaft will line up. I don't know of a really great way to hold this in, so I'm going to try and just work through getting a clamp on there so that I can hold that in place, get measurements to make a plate to find the center so we can figure out how to mount that, and then we can worry about the depth. Okay, got that clamped. Had to put a board in that way in order to hold that. But what I've done is I've got these so they're both in the same position vertically. So that has us at kind of a dead center there. Then I lined up where this rivet is to the center of the shaft to that rivet. I made sure those were all in line, and then I clamped that bar. That should give me the center of where the motor is going to be there for it. So now I want to make a plate that I can put right here, mark the center, and then we can work on figuring out how we're going to get the depth of the motor. For this plate, I got a piece of 16 gauge that I'm just going to hack off in just a square, and we can always trim it as we go, and if it's a little big, it's not a big deal because there's still a lot we got to do. got that plate drilled, got the center marked. That's where I think the center of the motor should be there for it. So the next thing I'm going to do is find the distance from this plate up to right where the bottom of this goes. Right now I've got this arm in upside down just to hold it in place, but what I want to try and do is figure out the measurement there, then I can figure out the distance for this and figure out how far the motor needs to be mounted down from this plate. I took this piece off so that I could measure the gap here, and then we got a happy little thing happening right there. That is actually the right distance, so as long as I make this flush with the top of that, we'll be good on height up and down. So that makes that easy because we won't have to fight a measurement in there. Even though this is the exact distance I need from this plate to where the wiper arms meet up, if I have it down like that, then I'm going to have it rubbing against this plate. So I do want to have that elevated just a little bit. I can always put a washer in between this plate to step that down in order to give me the gap that I need so that that rides just above that. To figure out the distance, it's pretty easy now because this here arm sits right down on top of that. So I just need to find the distance between here and this top plate. Whenever I put a tape measure on there, from there to there, it is 1.25 inches. So that's what I need, is not quite 1.25 inches, maybe right around 1 inch, because then that'll give me 1/4 inch where this will pop up through the plate, and so that doesn't rub, and we can always just throw a washer in there to push the plate down there for it. I had this piece here left over from when we did the cab pillar, and that's a nice shape already, and it just so happens to fit on that plate almost perfect. So the distance on that is 1 inch, so it's almost like that was meant to be there. So that's what we're going to use for the riser. Pretty much I'm going to weld this piece on. We're going to figure out where that hole goes through there, drill it on here, make it a little bit bigger, and then we will be able to bolt these to this riser piece, and that will give us the distance that we need and should be able to bolt right in there. That's welded up. I went ahead and transferred the hole from the back to the front. Now I'm going to take this plate off because we're going to use that same bolt pattern because that's what holds the motor, and transfer those holes to the front here. I'm going to transfer these holes to this so that we can mount it right to that. We'll just drill bigger holes in the back so we can get the bolts through, bolt it right to this, then that should get us where we need to be. One thing I didn't take into account for was how far this bolt offsets. So whenever I try and center that up, that puts that bolt hole out of this plate. So to contend with that, I'm just going to take it and we're just going to twist the motor in there a little bit so that the bolt holes actually line up. I'll still have plenty of clearance because there's lots of room under the dash there for it, and we're going to have to readjust the linkage in positioning to park anyway, so we can fix what that is down the road. Got the holes drilled. Now I've gnawed through that thing like a beaver with the hole saw. Man, I don't know. I apparently can't use a hole saw. Every time it just, awful looking. But either way, that should get us everything that we need to put it together and see if it works. That looks like that'll work for me. Next thing we're going to do is cut that off so we can weld that onto the bottom of the arm there. I need to get some new hardware because these were just some bolts that I had laying around. But all in all, that bracket's going to work just fine. And that's going to get our motor attached to the new assembly. Okay, I feel like I'm in the home stretch here now. The only things left that I really want to do to this piece, I mean, this was just kind of an adapter for us. I do want to clean up that hole from where that hole saw chewed a hole through there. The other thing is I scribed a line right across here. I want to make this edge contour the frame so that that lines up and has a nice clean look to it. The other thing I want to do is put a little radius on the edges right here, just so that doesn't have that sharp corner. That'll give that a cleaner look to it. Then finally, what I want to do is with this piece, like I said, the one that went for the car has a angled piece that once you crank that bolt down, that holds it real tight. This doesn't have that. So what I'm afraid is even though I can crank that bolt down tight, it's just going to spin. Hopefully if I can cut that off and tack weld that to the bottom of this, that'll hold that in place really well so it'll mimic what the car did. So a couple more things and we're all done. That's what that looks like. You know, just welded that piece on there. You know, nothing ridiculous. Just some booger welds there on the end just to hold that, keep it from twisting. Cleaned that up. Like I said, I angled this one side to match the frame. Just rounded off the corners a little bit there to clean that up. Cleaned up these holes. We put it all back together real quick and I'll show you, and that'll be it. There it is. All back together. I still have to get bolts for these. These were just some bolts I had lying around because I'm a hoarder. But for the most part, the bracket's fabbed up. I've got all new pieces to rebuild that because everything's stripped out in that. So at some point I am going to get together and replace all the components of that moves and everything like that. But I'm going to kind of hold off till we get onto a little bit more of the final assembly of that and do that then. So that's going to do it for today. Like always, thanks for watching the video. Hit that thumbs up for me. We'll see you back next week working on the truck some more. Haven't decided where I'm going to go yet. I really need to get back to the body repair because that is the hold up for everything else we want to do. So I don't know. We might be back on that next week unless I can think of something else easy to do in the meantime. Like always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.